today's meeting. The Thursday, March 6th meeting of the Planning Commission will be called to order. We do have a quorum. There's 3 people, 3 out of 5. I need to administer the oath. All people who will be testifying today, please stand. Do you swear or affirm that what you say today is the truth?
Yes, I do.
I do.
Thank you. Okay. We have a shorter agenda today. We need a member to recommend to amend the agenda to make the addition of case number 0804, the Citizens Bank of Logan.
I move we amend the agenda to add this case.
Do we have a second?
Second.
Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Great.
Okay. This is concerning the appeal of the Planning Commission's denial of variance requested for the lot split located in the Plains. Do you have some background, Steve? Or?
Yeah, just a little bit. I'd presented this application to you at the last meeting to make sure that I had your authorization to note its refusal, and it's refused based on Section 210406A2, Table 1 of subdivision regulations. These lots are one lot is proposed at 0.180 acres, and the other at 0.1626 acres, where 0.4591 acres, or 20,000 square feet, is permitted minimum. What it is, it's a redivision of 2 existing lots, lots 109 and 110 in the Michaels addition to the village of Verity, which was the name that the Plains had back in the day. It was called Verity. I had noted at the last meeting, too, because you'd asked me about a small encroachment of an adjacent house, and I explained the situation where I had conducted a site visit in the past, and there's an addition on the adjacent lot that encroaches, so that one little carved out piece that you see there up close to First Street is just to accommodate that structure next door, so that the entire structure is on that lot. And then essentially just to redivide these 2 existing lots to place a structure on each one. Right now, I believe the house in the front straddles the property line, and there's an apartment building in the backyard that has its parking on one lot and the building itself on another lot. So hopefully from the drawing there, you can see where turning that lot line 90 degrees will put each building on its own lot.
Right. So it's basically taking the lots that are now this way
Right.
and making them that way.
Exactly.
Okay.
Yeah, with that minor
With that
deletion.
little square, little
Right.
corner. Okay. So, questions?
And if I remember, the minimum lot requirements are 20,000 because it's out in the county, 1. 2, it does have its own water and sewer. It has public water and sewer, right? Or it doesn't?
Right.
does.
Table 1 in the subdivision regulations, what it does is it lists out in the county and in the city combinations of public water, public sewer, and curb and gutter. And depending on how each of those questions are answered, that drives the minimum lot size. So in this particular case, Plains Water and Sewer District has both water and sewer there. The streets don't have curbs on them, however, and so that makes the minimum lot area 20,000 square feet.
Okay.
And just kind of as a reference point, 43,560 square feet is an acre. So this is right around half an acre minimum area. A little under that. And I don't know if you have your packets from the last time. I did copy M24 Auditor's Tax Plat of the Plains, so you can see what the size of the lots are in the area. I mean, these were all pre-code platted lots, obviously, because none of them comply with the regulations that are currently in place.
Okay. Would you like to address us?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Should I address you from here?
Wherever you're more comfortable.
I'm recommending this James Lewis, I'm an officer with Citizens Bank. And I just want to explain to you kind of how this situation occurred. Because obviously a split of this small a lot, I mean, it's not something we generally would want to be doing. And also Citizens Bank is not in the development business. What happened was there was another individual who originally owned this piece of real estate. His name was a Mr. Abdella. And Mr. Abdella did not pay his loan, so we ended up filing foreclosure action and ended up actually getting this real estate back via that foreclosure. What Mr. Abdella did, and I did not realize it, is he actually had it listed in all of our documents as being 8 and 8.5 First Street there in the Plains. I mean, and again, if you actually would, if you go out and view it, it looks like they're two entirely separate structures. I think Mr. Pearson would agree with that. However, one basically faces on the front, and then the other one faces on the back. I mean, the one in the front basically would make a very nice single-family residence. And so our thought was, I mean, we're always trying in the business of trying to help people out, especially, I mean, this would be a nice, what I call starter home, and so to see if we could try to do that. Now, obviously, there's benefit to us as well, because it means there's more buyers for a property like that, and so I don't want to try and buffalo the board, I mean, into thinking that we don't get benefit out of that as well. But then, that's the reason for it. I mean, when we originally made the loan, I mean, it was not our intent on developing it or doing anything like this. So we simply had a borrower who wanted to make a loan and who wanted money for the transaction. So that's how we got into it. I mean, so that's kind of the way it came to be this way. It was not our intent ever to be here in this proceeding on any kind of development type of issue.
I didn't check the property. I didn't go out there. I had a hard time probably finding it, or maybe not. I see it has a vinyl fence according to this map diagram. That actually cuts the property in two right now. So, is that what the survey shows? It says white vinyl fence. Oh,
Yeah,
vinyl
I haven't
fence.
been out there. Like I said, what I mentioned was I was there last year looking at it. If the surveyor, Mr. Seymour, put white vinyl fence, probably they
Probably
have
said
split
vinyl
it up
fence.
that
I'm
way.
assuming it's white.
Actually, when I was out there, also, the extent of the parking area that's indicated on the survey wasn't that great. And actually, it looks like it's been paved. When I was there, it was gravel, now it's been paved.
Yeah, I mean, the parking area which is in the back is very nice. Again, the building that's in the back is actually a triplex. I mean, and so what happens is you have a very nice large parking area in the back for that triplex. And then the other one, obviously, is a single-family residence that's there in the front.
Yeah, there is a driveway with the house in the front.
And the back portion is access through the alley?
Yes, I
Over.
mean, yeah, I think it's actually, I mean, it's a road, but actually, I mean, the way I would refer to it is more of an alley really than a road. I mean, and it is not a paved road. It looks like it's what I would call either a chip road or a gravel type of road. But I mean, that's the way they've always had access to that structure, and it's the only way really in and out as we speak right now.
This is right behind, you know where Bargain Billy's is? And then Auto Exchange, right on the corner. It's right there. If you look at if you've got that other drawing.
Yeah, the larger one.
Yeah, this is the corner of Johnson Road and Route 682 right here. That's where the traffic signal is. So,
Where the nose is.
where it says William Stalden, that's Bargain Billy's, and Daniel Baldwin, that's Auto Exchange. And there's a little alley that runs from 682 back toward the high school. So if you ever go up to Bargain Billy's, that's where he's driving his truck through, right there. And it's right behind the car dealership also.
Okay.
So this needs to be 682.
If the lot split didn't occur, how much more difficulty would you foresee being able to do the things you need to do?
Well, again, I mean, you know, obviously we could still sell the property. The property would be less saleable, but obviously, I mean, for an individual homeowner to buy it would basically make it impossible at that point in time. And obviously, what we were trying to do is basically make it so that possibly individual homeowners could buy it. I mean, the only person who could buy that obviously would be an investor, because it's, I mean, the building in the back is 2 stories and is very, very substantial. So, I mean, only somebody who would be a real estate investor type of person would be able to purchase it. This isn't the type of property where you basically which you sometimes have, especially in a little bit more undeveloped area, where you have basically a residence and then have a smaller building that basically has, I mean, something that you could rent out to a student or something like that. I mean, it clearly is the main building really is the commercial building in the back. So, I mean, you know, obviously that would indicate that, I mean, you know, it would be going to somebody who is not a single-family resident. I mean, it would be another commercial investor. And again, obviously, to me, this, I mean, as I go down this street, this seems to be more of a residential type of area. And again, it was our thought that basically, if we developed or allow this to be sold to a single-family, become a single-family residence, it would actually probably be more in character with the overall area than actually the way it is right now. I mean, but again, I would defer to Mr. Pearson, who obviously has more experience in the area than I did.
You see this type of development occurring quite often, especially in the plains. Water and sewer service, no zoning, no building regulations, and that's where you might see a house with 2 trailers in the backyard, or you might see a house with an apartment building in the backyard. So it's I don't know if it's fortunate or unfortunate. Compared to city regulations, it's unfortunate because the development would not be consistent with what occurs in town. However, the city's looking at the 3-mile radius, the subdivision of the land, not necessarily the development. So it's not out of character for the development in that area, but it's way out of character for development in town.
That'd be true.
Well, I mean, theoretically, if you sold it as one unit, probably somebody would most likely either rent the front house to students or whoever, or tear it down and build another apartment complex if it's somebody who's into
Perhaps.
rental.
Well, I mean, I could conceivably see somebody wanting to own a house, but, you know, pay off the loan by having the apartments behind there, too. Okay, because if we split it, then, okay, obviously the front part, First Street's a starter house, but the second part is, you know, who moves into there and what do you see happening there? In all cases, it doesn't fit anything we have in the city, as Steve points out. I mean, in terms of lot coverage, it doesn't fit. In terms of, you know, all the setback stuff. And we'll make it contrary to, although size-wise, it probably is very similar to the adjacent lots.
Right,
It's-
because all this went through.
Yeah, configuration is different, though. I mean, it'll be just, you know, the only frontage will be on the alleyway for these guys.
Right. Well, I mean, the configuration's already different just with the historical building of it and the fence and the enormous parking lot. So, and basically you have, if you do this, you also have one lot that's completely covered. I mean, the coverage of the lot is,
But there's no zoning.
right.
And actually, I think, yeah,
So,
it would be, it's good 80% right there. So.
yep. So, any more questions?
What do you think?
I'm looking at the drawing here shows the one-story house on the 2 lots. Am I reading that correctly?
Right, it
Yeah.
straddles the property line between lot 109 and 110.
And the deck is on a portion of it also, based on this survey.
What was that again? I'm sorry.
The deck.
The deck is part of, straddles the,
Okay.
Yes. Yeah, it looks like there's a
Historically-
deck in the front, deck in the back, and then
Yeah.
the
that's
current
just-
property line just goes right down through the middle of it.
Yeah.
Without zoning regulations, you know, you could buy 2 or 3 or 4 lots and build a structure any way you wanted. This is
Anyway.
kind of like a 1920s type skinny deep lot, platted where somebody bought 2 and built a 1950s ranch kind of house
That's right.
across the front.
Right.
And the only way they could build that type of house would be to own 2 lots. But again, without zoning, there's no regulation on setback or lot coverage or parking or anything like that.
there are some of these in the city. I think I've seen some of these things before where a house straddles 2 lots that were, you know, predate the code.
Or a lot and a half. That's what,
What? Yeah.
some of the ones on Morris are lots and a half.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's split up.
Yep. So,
What happens in the city if you propose some type of construction and you have 2 lots, but it's going to straddle the line? We either require a new perimeter survey or that the deeds be combined with the language that they're continuous and contiguous. That legally by language as opposed to a survey combines the lots. So then you're
right. Yeah, okay. So,
Other
But
questions?
that wouldn't work, that
Questions?
doesn't work in this case.
no. So, do we have any more questions? Concerns?
So in total area, really, by splitting it in half, it's not going to change the area, differ from the adjacent lots, if I'm looking at it correctly. Each one's about 50 wide, and this one will be 90 by 75. Actually, it might always say, no, this is going to cut in half. So
It looks like most of the lots are 50 by 120.
120, is that?
Right in
Oh,
that
that's
area.
why it's not adding up. Okay.
So it's just kind of moving the lot line.
Yeah.
It's just kind of, so they're all skinny little lots, and this will be the fat, chubby lot.
And everybody from years from now will wonder why it was done.
Well, you could put a historical note on the deed. So this was done. So, well, do we have an amendment or a movement, whatever it's called?
Motion?
Motion. Don't mind me.
I guess we can move to accept the lot split.
Yeah. Okay, we have a motion to accept the lot split. Do we have a second?
Second.
Okay.
Do you want to discuss this?
You wanna discuss it?
Is this, when this will occur, will this essentially protect then that front dwelling unit?
Yes, that's what we're trying to do, is basically, again, at least it's been, again, I am not in the development end of the bank, I'd be the first to admit that. But generally, I mean, if you have single-family residences, I mean, again, it usually makes the neighborhood, I mean, gives it more of a neighborhood feel. I mean, right now, it has much more of a commercial feel to this. I mean, again, and as I recall going back this way here, there are many more single-family residences. That was our reason was thinking, well, this more, because for example, the folks who are next door here at the, it's, at least in my map, it says the Donna Jones Lot 108. I mean, that's a single-family residence. So again, obviously, it was our intent basically to say, okay, let's try and make this like the character of the rest of the street. I mean, so that was what we were trying to do, as opposed to make it more of a commercial industrial type of feel. Although obviously, to a certain extent, you have that not far away, because obviously the state route is, I mean, more or less out there at the end of the street.
And in contrast, as another aspect of this, though, by splitting this lot, you're saying, okay, we're going to make this more amenable to somebody in the front part of it, that's one-story house.
That's
But
fair.
whoever buys that, by definition, because the lot has been split, and in theory can be sold in two different portions, they have no control over their backyard. Their backyard has a two-story triplex in the backyard.
That is correct.
Okay, so the argument that it makes it more family-oriented or single-family residence properties is almost lost at that point. Just because all of a sudden whoever buys this house in the front is going to have a rental in back that they have no control of.
Well, yeah, but the rental in the back, if you notice, is entirely fenced off. I mean, so again, it'd be like, I mean, if you had, for example, there are homes over here on Stimson Avenue here in Athens, I mean, which are, that are one street north of Stimson. I mean, and they basically back up the alley, and then they back up to a bunch of commercial buildings. I mean, all of them, basically, the commercial buildings on the one side, and as well as the homes on the street north of there, all have basically an alleyway as well as a fencing along the back. So, I mean, again, so to a certain extent, you have that, but on the other hand, by the fencing, I mean, and things face out on one street, and the other things face on the other street. I mean, I think you've that's not as bad as maybe it might sound. And actually, I mean, and once somebody lives there, I mean, their thought is, I mean, I live on First Street, and I really don't think at all about what's behind me. I know I grew up in a development up in Columbus, and basically and I guess the reason I don't think much about it is we had a similar type of thing. I mean, our street basically was one street north of what they refer to as Old Route 40, which in Columbus is Main Street. I mean, so Main Street obviously is one of the most commercial streets in the city of Columbus, but I mean, but on our street, which was just simply one street north, I mean, everybody thought of it as residential, even though, I mean, you could hear the traffic going up and down Old Route 40, at least, and I'm old enough vintage that I remember actually before there were expressways. I mean, you had major traffic up and down there. So again, to me, it makes it much more of a residential feel, even though, again, you're right, it is only fencing that's around it.
Well, okay, so if it doesn't get split, what would be the scenario? Somebody would buy this and buy it the whole thing, and your anticipation was that somebody would want to turn it into some kind of commercial as a result?
No, again, my thought would be is if somebody buys the lot in the front, I mean, they're always going to basically want to have that as a single-family residence, just like the Donna Jones lot 108 is next door. I mean, it really doesn't lend itself to any other type of purpose. And then, obviously, the lot, the part of it in the back, which is a triplex, I mean, is always going to be an apartment building. I mean, again, the apartment building, I mean, it's fairly nice construction. I can't see anybody, especially in this environment today, wanting to basically rip that apartment building down and put something else out. But again, I would also be the first to realize that, forecasting the future is not a significant suit of mine. So I mean, is it possible that someday, if there's a lot more development in the Plains area, that development could come this way down First Street and happen? Yeah, but it might. But I would say that would be many, many years from now. It would be my anticipation.
Okay. So I guess I'm not sure which way is better. In that sense.
Okay.
I mean, I look and say, I could see somebody buying this with the idea that this, the triplex in the back becomes their the cash cow, although I don't know what occupancy it runs or anything like that. But I do see that they'd have more control over the back in terms of retaining this as a residential area. I mean, if the person in front's obviously going to be buying for residential purposes.
Yeah,
The
absolutely.
person, okay, but they will. I see this in duplexes in my neighborhood on the west side. You have a duplex where somebody lives on one side of the duplex and
Right.
rents the other side. So therefore, they're actually augmenting or supplementing their mortgage. The tendency is that the next door of their duplex does not get blowout parties because the landlord's living right next door, or landlady in some cases. If we split this, I could see where now you have somebody in the front who all they can do is go to the vinyl fence and shake their fist, or call the sheriff, I guess. Whereas if they do this as an investment and own this, and again, we're really all we're looking at is there's a variance in place here,
Right.
and it has to be weighed with the adjacent properties, which are also of a similar size or small size. But I could see if somebody says we're going to buy this, they now have control of their environment a little bit more. It costs them more to do that.
Yeah,
But at
again-
least they have more than just shaking their fist over the vinyl fence.
And that would be true. I mean, however, I think it's the type of thing where, usually when you have, as I said, that type of building, usually what happens is the single-family residence, is either, as you said, the owner tends to live in one part of the duplex, or basically they have a larger home, and then you have smaller homes appended to it. Here, basically, the triplex that is in back is actually a much bigger, much newer structure than the home, I would say, that's in the front. So again, I think it's certainly conceivable that could happen, but I would say it would be unlikely that would happen in this particular instance. But again,
Okay. So really what we're discussing is the age of the buildings right now.
partial.
Okay.
Home in the front's probably 1920s, probably. That
Probably not
era.
range, then.
The apartment building's probably 5 years or less.
I would think so. It looks like fairly new, more modern type of construction.
Because actually, when I was out there to look at it, I was looking at the encroachment of the house next door, and the apartment building didn't even exist in the back. So maybe it wasn't just last year, but it was recent. It's, I guess what I'm saying is the apartment is almost brand new. It's next to new.
So it's not really a ranch. There weren't any ranches being built on 20s, or is this just a one-story,
The apartment building?
the house? So
The house is just single story.
Single story.
Bungalow.
What?
A bungalow.
A bungalow. With 2 decks.
With 2 decks. They like outside. And through all this little funky encroachment will be taken care of? And
Well, yeah, I mean, obviously what we want to do is, I mean, as a matter of fact, I haven't spoken with the people since then, but after the foreclosure action started, the folks that actually live next door said, you know, we want to try and take care of this issue, because we know our, it's like a cement pad that's there, basically extends across. I mean, so obviously our thought was, we're going to do one split, let's try and talk about both of them, I mean, at the same time, obviously. I mean, because and it would do major damage. I mean, you know, it would, I can't remember exactly what it's constructed of, but I mean, this would be a major effort basically to try and remove that. It's not something that's easily removable.
Okay.
And again, and it looks like it's been there for some time. My guess would be is that in building, somebody built it over there and basically had gone out and taken a real close look at the lot line and didn't realize it was built over. But again, I mean, I'm coming to the after the fact, so that's a guess on my part and a speculation. I mean, I certainly don't know for certain.
And speaking with the next door neighbors that have the encroachment, all 3 of those lots were owned by the same family at one time. And I think I told you too, they had said something about this row of peonies we thought was the property line, but it wasn't. But people didn't, you know, if it was the granddaughter and the grandmother, wasn't a problem. And with no building regulations or zoning regulations in the plains, there's nobody even there to check that out.
Okay.
do you have any questions?
I don't even know if that matters.
We heard this last time. If you
This is
remember,
the
this is
lot.
one we denied.
The lot split in the plains.
The size of the lot is substandard. It's supposed to be 20,000 feet. It's less, 20,000 square feet. They've come back to reappeal it according to their power of
To
doing
ask
so.
for a variance.
Yeah.
But it should be noted that all the lots are substandard lots in that area.
Mm-hmm.
Any more questions?
Would the Citizens Bank of Logan then take care of transferring that and tying it continuously and contiguously, your little
So far
piece
as
for-
the 2 lots after the split, yes, we
For
would
Miss
certainly.
Jones, for the Jones family?
Oh, yeah, we would basically go ahead and do that, yeah. I mean, because, I mean, and again, as I said, I have not talked with them recently, but again, even during, it was shortly after the foreclosure was filed, they basically said, we want to take care of that, and I said, wait until we actually own it, and then we'll try and take care of that. Yeah, so again, that was one of the things we were going to do, was transfer that to these folks, and they've already indicated they have wanted it. However, I'm not going to sit here and say, I mean, that I have talked with them. I know I haven't talked with them since the first of the year, but I want to say it was like in about October, September of last year that we talked about with the folks who owned this other parcel, lot 108, and we talked with them about that, and they said they wanted it, so that's what we want to do, because obviously that clears up that part of the lot line issue.
Okay.
I can't think of any reason why they wouldn't want it.
And if this split didn't go through, this would be still an outstanding issue that they would have to take care at some point on their own accord,
Yeah.
at their own expense.
Okay. In 210203A is variances, exceptions, waivers of conditions. And it states, this is where due to exceptional topographical and other physical conditions, the planning commission finds that extraordinary and unnecessary hardship may result in strict application of these regulations. Or the purpose of these regulations may be served to a great extent by an alternative proposal. It may recommend to council the approval of variances, exceptions, waivers of conditions, provided that they will not be a detriment to public health, safety, welfare, or injuries to other properties. Such variances shall not have the effect of nullifying the intent and purpose of these regulations, comprehensive plan, or the zoning code when they exist. Just so you know. Okay. Any questions, Harry? No?
No.
Okay.
Okay. Well, we have a motion on the floor, on the desk,
And second.
and seconded. All those in favor of accepting the variance? And would this then go on to the city council? Okay. So you would go to city council
We
next?
recommend it to city council approve it. That's the way it
Right.
works, right, Steve?
Right.
I can get with Melissa, too, to get the exact language. It's set it up just like the Board of Zoning Appeals does it. From section, in this case, 210408A2, Table 1, to permit 2 lots, just as I stated. I could take it right off the email, I think that I say.
Okay.
So we can get the language just exactly right.
Okay. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
I would abstain, unless it makes any difference here.
No. And I'm against.
Okay.
Okay. But you've
So-
got it.
3
Is that the phrase?
2 to 3, 2 to 1 with 1 abstention. So the
I
variance now,
don't
I
know.
think that's right,
Does that pass?
with 1 abstention.
Don't you need 3?
No, if the quorum is 3,
Uh,
we need 2 out of 3.
I'd say that'd be a question for the law director. What constitutes
Quorum.
quorum, and that in relationship to the number of votes needed to carry a motion? Is it the majority of the quorum, or is it a majority of a full board? I'd say that's a legal question. You need to ask the law director.
Okay. So
Okay.
this will be forwarded to the law director. Okay.
It either passes or it doesn't, depending on the decision of the vote.
I
Okay.
apologize, since I wasn't in it right at the beginning.
Okay. My main concern is just the splitting of it and the control of how it would fix up and how it would mix at that point.
Steve? I'll let you know what I find out, or what we find out from the law director.
Thank you, Mr. Pearson. Thank you very much.
Okay.
I worry more about that.
Well,
I worry more about them.
I think that's going to happen anyway.
Who pays for it or not.
I suspect they will.
Yeah. So, okay. Next on the agenda is communications. That was all our cases.
I don't have any communications.
Would this be under communications? Or under, it doesn't say homework.
Call it other business, actually.
Other business,
Yeah.
okay. Steve, do you have any communications for us? He's getting a sheet out.
Yeah.
You have more communications. He does have communications.
He always has communications.
That's why we like him.
We get crayons?
Okay.
And I didn't have time to shrink it down either, so
Oh, is this coming back again?
This is a new rendition of it. I sourced a little bit of this a day or 2 ago. Will you tell us what we're looking at?
Yeah, at the last Planning Commission meeting, I had just kind of alluded in general to a development project that I thought might be coming through. I described its combination of uses and had just kind of queried whether it would be considered under Title 41 site plan review or under 2109 plan unit development. I do now have elevation drawings and a site plan
This is
for the proposed project. It's at the corner of Stimson and Palmer Street. It's where the new-to-you thrift store was formerly located, now a vacant building. Where you, for example, where you see restaurant alcohol on the corner of the site plan, that's where the Obama headquarters was at.
Okay.
And as you head back up Stimson, you're headed back up toward Ambassador Laundry and the old Bob's Supermarket. Going the other direction, you're going down Palmer Street toward the Roller Bowl, and right across the street's the Hocking Valley Bank.
So there's
So-
basically 2 entrances here on Palmer.
It's supposed to be drive.
Drive-through one way.
Which one? This one would be-
Yeah.
Is this, are they want to keep the old building there that has the
No, I think
truck
it's-
liner?
It's gone.
No, with this proposal, they're proposing, if I could come up, maybe I
Yeah,
could
come
just
on
make it
up.
a little easier. Just imagine the existing building gone.
Right.
The building that's there now is 130 by 130. Basically starts in the corner, goes all the way back,
Right.
almost to the alley.
Yeah.
But then it stops about right here. So we're talking about additional construction here where there's a parking lot right across from pharmacy.
Mhm.
On the elevation, you can see, this is the elevation.
This is the
Looking from
restaurant.
Stimson. Yeah, that'd be the restaurant. This opening right here would be that opening that would get through to get to this parking in the back.
And this would be another opening.
That's the opening at the end. It's
On
right
Palmer.
back there.
Yeah, okay.
And that's the drive-through is over there.
That's the
Yeah, right
drive-through.
there.
Yeah, the drive-through would probably just be dedicated to whatever use was here, a bank, a restaurant, whatever. This would be the main traffic in and out. That opening.
Well, there's,
that-
most of them are coming in going this way, or coming in and going this way. Because there's the ordering, in theory, here's a
Right.
pickup,
Right.
in
So
theory.
you would have to drive underneath the building to get to the restaurant drive-through. Now, these dash lines that you see, like right there and there, and over top right here, that's actually part of the building. It's connected.
So this would be a building right here? No.
Yes, well, it's part of this one large building.
So it'd be up on, this whole area's up on stilts, so to speak.
Right. Everything has parking. It appears that at
This
least
is, this is also an apartment right here.
That's right.
And that's on stilts.
Parking underneath, parking underneath, parking underneath, parking underneath right there. This retail is at ground level with these cars. Those two apartments right there are at ground level on Palmer with cars underneath. And then it's like this, everything just stacks over top. So it's partly occupied, partly parking. There's a breakdown over here in the corner
Right.
of the number of tenants,
Yeah.
the number of parking spaces, and I think it makes reference to the total square footage of the available retail space.
So they have 122 bedrooms, 67 parking, but no, so that theoretically would be for the apartments and and the restaurant.
The reason I said that was because they don't list any parking.
For
the
retail.
restaurant.
Yeah, there's nothing listed here.
So
Are they
I-
assuming that they're going to use the street parking?
Well, right now, there's parking all down Palmer Street right here that's public, and there's parking out on the street also that's.
So they aren't including this in their 67?
They can't.
I don't know that I counted it up. No, they can't.
Okay.
If they
Public
have,
parking.
they can't.
Right, but now they have restaurant parking 5 spaces.
But that's,
That's city.
yeah.
Right.
Right, and
If
then
that's
they have this
included
thing.
in the count, yeah,
Yeah.
it can't be included in the count. In any case, we're talking about a parking deficiency.
Right.
So you'd have to take the square footage of the retail, go to the charts, it's one parking spot for every 200 square feet. Add those in because they're not listed. And then depending on the use here, bank and business, parking's a little different than restaurant, which is a little different than retail and service. It's all right around one spot for every 200 to 400 square feet. In any case, parking deficiency. It's a B3 business zone, so residential use on the first floor is another deviation from the code. The building is 4 stories tall, where 3.5 stories is the maximum. It is less than.
Is it
the
4
40
stories compared to the thing behind the, what is it called, Palmer
No.
Place? Because that's 3 stories, but it's very tall.
Right, it's 3.5 stories.
And this would be 4.
This would be
Right.
4, but with the number of the
It's
height.
still, yeah, it's still pushing, I think there's a dimension right here.
40, 10.
So even though it's 4 stories tall, it's under the 45 feet.
Right, because they're using they're using flat
It'll-
roofs.
It'll
and
still
stuff.
be
There.
pretty tall.
Yeah.
And it's right up to the sidewalk, or the property line.
On pitched roofs like they have over at Landmark, you measure to the center of the roof. So here's the
Oh,
plate,
okay.
the
So-
roof rafters going up, you measure halfway up, that's how you get building height.
Okay,
In this case, you're not able to do that, they're going clear to this parapet wall
right.
that faces, it's the facing for the flat roof.
Okay,
Interesting architecture.
if I understand this correctly, really what you're asking us to do is whether this should be considered, whether we should be approached as a planning commission as a PUD or a Title 41, right?
Right. The new Title 41 covers everything but single-family homes and duplexes. So right now, for example, with the code officers, I'm just doing single-family homes, duplexes, accessory structures, those things that are exempted in 41. One of the exemptions in 41 are planned unit developments. All right, and so both of those then are under the initial purview of the Planning Commission. Site plan review is contained. It's a contained review within the Planning Commission. Planned unit development is a review and recommendation by Planning Commission that then goes to Council. In site plan review, variances go to the Board of Zoning Appeals. In a planned unit development, variances are recommended to Council by the Planning Commission.
So the basic diversion here is that if there's variances required, and it looks like there would be,
I've seen at least 4 so
Yes.
far, just in my very cursory review.
okay, then at that point, if, as a PUD, we would look at it as a board, the council would look at it as elected officials. With Title 41, we look at it as a board, the zoning board of appeals looks at it for the variances.
Right.
Okay.
Now, the definition of a planned unit development in the subdivision regulations is a combination of residential and commercial uses, which is the case here. It is a combination. Depending on how you look at it, it's all one large building. But planned unit development, I believe, could occur in one large building. The number of buildings, not necessarily, I think, what would be driving how you would review it. It would be the combination of the uses. And so, and this is just in my opinion, I think this is a planned unit development, albeit contained in one building.
It's hot.
It's going to be a very dark corner right here.
Yeah. Yeah.
And here too. I mean, basically, this goes up 4 stories. This is,
Well, they're using the back lot for, instead of just parking. And what's here is the roller bowl.
yeah.
Oh,
And then here is Palmer
Yeah.
Place, which
That's the
is
laundry here.
Palmer's that way.
Yeah, further down this way.
That way.
No, this way.
Oh,
this way.
Towards me.
Yeah, the laundry would be, what happens to the parking for the pharmacy and stuff? Does that go away?
It would go away.
Yeah.
Is the pharmacy renting from,
Yeah.
My understanding is there are leasing spots, there's signs down there on
Right.
poles that say pharmacy parking only on 3 or 4 or 5
yeah,
spots.
okay.
Yeah, their parking, their lease parking would go away.
Their lease parking would go,
In either case, it would have to go through the Tree Commission, Disabilities Commission, in both cases, right? PUD
Right.
yeah,
and,
and, yeah. So, it's kind of a question of who recommends and gives the variances, sounds like. Is there parking on both sides of the street here? I don't remember.
No.
Yes, there is.
Is there?
Not a lot, though.
Little bit, I think there's 1 or 2 spots maybe right there in front of the, what's that place called now? Bellavino.
Marketplace, and
Yeah.
there's
And
Canning
there's-
Place,
Yeah,
and that's about it. The wine, was it Vino Place?
Vino.
Carryout.
Bellavino.
Bella-
There's no
Bellavino.
parking in front of the old hardware store.
right.
The market,
Uptown Market,
yeah, there's no parking right through there.
from
On
there
the-
on, yeah, okay. Because this will change the street parking here.
Oh, definitely.
Right now, it's, which, I mean, for traffic wise, slow it down.
Well, again, to how do we want to handle this? And this is not really an application here. This is just how does the, developer go and make the application?
Make the
Which way?
application. Well, from what I see and understand of the two things, PUD gives more flexibility, allowances for more flexibility.
By definition, yes, it
Yes.
does.
So it seems that if there's only one variance, then a site plan review would make sense. But when you start getting multiple variances, then it would make more sense to go through a PUD process because it just, that way everything's more holistically planned for the whole
Right.
process.
And actually, that is part of the definition, too. It talks about a PUD as a pre-planned environment.
Right,
So you
right.
going through the PUD process gives a lot more control over the review committee's ability to have input. The zoning board, they have very strict criteria that they have to go by.
Right,
which
and
is
if one of the
very
variances
inflexible.
fails, then that would impact the whole,
Okay.
right? Well,
Right.
I would suggest to Mr. Kokos is to go through a PUD.
Okay.
Yes.
I'd have the priority on that.
You think?
That sounds to me like
Yeah.
it should go that way.
Yeah.
You know, they have the choice then?
Well, it's
No,
our
it's
choice.
It's our choice. We're in control here. All right. We're the planners.
We are the planners.
Now, the next step in the process, the code says, is a pre-application meeting with the developer. It's
Okay.
to discuss with them in an early and informal manner all the requirements of the code.
Sounds
Right.
good, yeah.
So, for example, as you mentioned, landscaping, tree commission, I'll check to make sure there aren't any flood damage prevention
Right.
concerns there.
Concerns about some of the variances they may need.
Right. We'll talk about the parking variances. Fire department might want to weigh in on fire suppression systems and water service in the area. Street department might want to make comment on increased amount of traffic at the intersection. So this next step is kind of just to give the developer an overall picture of all the concerns that the city might have. And then they proceed through the application process, which is pre-application approval or preliminary approval. And then you have to come back with another set of information for final approval, public hearing, recommendation to council, that kind of thing. By the time we get to preliminary application, I'll have a checklist for you, just like the one I generated for Title 41. What I've done in the past is just copied the code and checked it off, but I'll actually do a form that looks like the Title 41 checklist. So we'll have that ready. But the next thing then is this pre-application meeting with the developer.
Okay, so that could be scheduled next time? Is that what?
If
Is
you-
that more informal, or?
It just says early and informal. Now, the planning commission, in the past, it's been done a couple different ways, but more often than not, it's an open meeting, just like this. It doesn't say that it has to be a public meeting, it just says that you meet. But I think the planning commission, in the past at least, has wanted to have available to everyone all the information, so everyone knows what's happening.
Okay, transparency.
And again, there are 2 public hearings that will be required going through this process, assuming, a favorable recommendation from the commission to council.
Okay. Sounds good.
Okay. So you want to arrange that?
I'll let the developer know that he needs to attend the next meeting of the planning commission.
I'll do
And
that.
tell him too that if there are additional documents that he'd like to provide, the sooner we can see things, the better.
Yeah, that would
So-
be, and I would encourage that it's required in the site plan review that developers put things in the library,
It is under site plan review, but not planned
PD,
unit
but
development.
I'd like to encourage that, because that way people, my opinion is more information that neighbors and such get more readily, and coming to, the town hall is just really difficult for people. So if he could also supply, we
You
could
mean
just
this
encourage him.
preliminary or after it gets past the preliminary?
Well, after we do the preliminary and there's more, and people will start hearing about it, and we want to, because,
It's
the
not required,
neighbors
but
may
the-
have some good ideas
Excuse
and stuff, so,
It's not required under planned unit development,
Right.
but the planning commission has done that in the past.
yes. I just
Uh,
think,
have things done.
the city hall, because it closes so early, it's really difficult for people, so,
I can make sure that all the documents contained in the file will also be available at the public library.
great, thanks.
I've done that before.
Okay. So is that for this? So you're going to get a hold of the purpose? Cool. Okey dokey. That means we won't be bored in the near future.
We will not be bored in the near future.
Okay, any other business? You have anything else? No more rolled up documents or anything?
That was under communication, I think.
Yeah, from under the
Okay.
table.
May surprise us.
Okay, announcements and other business. The next meeting, which is March 20th at 12 o'clock.
Your-
Yes, that's the announcement. And other business, you'll have one of these in your, I did my homework, like a good girl. So I'm a teacher and I can't get, I'm giving homework, oh my gosh.
Let's see if I can
Okay.
find it. I probably buried it already.
Buried.
This one right here,
Yes,
definition.
okay.
Did you get
I
that?
went,
Should be in the pack, bet you, 'cause then you-
there's an interesting website that you can go to that has, you probably know this, Steve, that has all the codes for, I don't know, 60 or 70 cities in Ohio. And I did a search for restaurant. I started with restaurant. So here are some of the examples that I got from different, I tried to get cities that were like us and cities that weren't like us, and some of them had no mention of restaurant, and these are the ones I found. I did do bar, and not very many of them had bar as a definition, except for a handlebar, which is illegal to ride on if you, on a bicycle. And then it also has the drive-in, definitions of what a drive-in, because I know that what came up in the part of the section that we were looking at on amending. Some of the words that were crossed out had actually said drive-in and roadhouse and those sort of things. So we can take a look at this and see, what looks good, and then come up with something on our own.
Okay,
So
thanks for doing it.
I don't know if I'm going to find roadhouse either.
Okay,
I could go to like Mississippi codes or something. I'm sure that they have them. So, yeah.
okay, and I haven't done anything with mine in terms of the contracting, but I'll get on.
Okay.
I did a little bit on political signs. Paula gave me a bunch of things to look over, and I guess this would apply to any temporary sign. And one of the things that kind of stood up in my mind, I was going to go over it again, but I was thinking 2 o'clock.
Okay.
But anyway, after I went through it the first time, what struck me was that if you specify a day at which the temporary sign can start and also the end, is generally considered unconstitutional. And so I got the idea then that you can specify how long, how many days or weeks a temporary sign can stay up, but you cannot specify when to begin or end.
That's interesting.
And then, well, it does make sense though for political signs. They're not going to appear too far ahead. There's a limit on the duration.
Right. Except for your Ron Paul signs. They,
Now, that was a political commentary right there, which I'm sure the Ron Paul people would not like to hear.
no, their signs went up very early.
Now, okay, so in terms of a temporary sign, I think how we have it right now for special event signs, it's like 1 month, 4 times a year, or 4 months total.
Okay.
Okay, if my memory is correct on this. So really, that's a duration, as you were saying.
Right.
Okay. The other one you see in terms of a real estate sign, which goes up and stays up until 2 weeks
needed.
after the closing, yes. But that's not a closing date, that's a condition that changes. The difference between that, saying you can have it up between here and here, so there's a difference.
Right.
And how do you deal about the temporary rental signs?
That's another thing we're going to have to deal with sooner
Yes.
than later. We'll work on that.
Because how do you define, like a real estate sign, closing date, lease sign, but then they're starting them for next year right after that, and so.
Well, the thing, I've had this discussion with Steve about real estate signs too, because eventually your house will be sold.
Yes.
Someday your house
One
will be
hopes.
sold.
One hopes. So,
You know, maybe after your family got tired of living in it, many years, 3 generations from now, but it will be sold by somebody.
Yep.
Okay?
So-
The land's not going away. Maybe the house, but not the land.
right.
So therefore, that sign could be up there to the next closing.
Oh, yeah. Yep.
Do you all have the Ohio Supreme Court case decision on Dworkin Bernstein versus Talmadge Board of Zoning Appeals? I've distributed that quite a few times.
Not in this package
None of
here,
that's
no.
back.
Okay, I'll get that to you again. That's an Ohio
Okay.
Supreme Court case that addresses temporary signs and particular political signs, but
Okay.
does draw the whole thing in. I also have some information about, it's just like a federal think tank, about Center for Legal Services. I mean, it's got some kind of name. I can give you that information, too. It's a very good explanation of how you have to be content neutral, time neutral, not to violate anyone's First Amendment rights. I can also give you a copy of a local common pleas court decision regarding the difference between temporary and permanent, I don't know if you call them real estate signs. I'll give you a copy of that local decision also. And it does mention things like limited period of time, that kind of, those kinds of things, temporary in nature, but without explanation.
Would you see a difference between content being, or use? In other words, the difference between, you say a political sign, is that a use or content, or a real estate sign, is that a use or content? I mean, the content of a real estate sign, it's real
Right.
estate, but at the
Well, in
same
other
time...
words, what I'm saying is the content of the sign cannot drive how you treat it. Yeah, no matter what the sign says, you have to treat them all in the same manner, as best you can. So, but then there are differences too. For example, in the particular case here locally, it was, is this sign an off-site advertising sign, or is this sign a temporary real estate sign? And that was kind of the crux of the issue. Now, the city prevailed in that case, and it was determined that signs on properties that advertised a management company or an owner at a different site was advertising for the business. But then there's an explanation in the decision about temporary, limited period of time real estate signs. And that's when language on a lot of these signs changed from managed by to for rent, based on the reading of the court decision.
Okay.
So,
And of course, the assumption is there that, whether it's rent or lease, there's a difference, or rather, sold. So it's
Right.
still real estate in that sense.
Right.
so there's some things that the city has in common with court decisions in other jurisdictions and federally. Then we have kind of a local spin to it too that will have to be incorporated. And because I know a lot of people are very concerned about these types of signs. Are they temporary real estate signs, or are they permanent business advertising signs? Or are the places permanently for rent?
Right.
So, and
I
you did,
look at them as they're the signs that you call when things aren't working.
some people like them, some people think that they degrade and debase the neighborhood and lower the property value. So that, I'm sure, will be a big part of the discussion, if any, language change or legislation is considered. So in some respects, they're very nice. You know who to get a hold of right away. In other respects, you may see it as detrimental to your neighborhood.
Okay.
Okay.
So I'll get copies of all those things to you again.
Okay. So, any other business? Okay. Opportunity for citizens to speak about items not covered on agenda. Citizens? Okay. Disposition of minutes? I had no problems with
I had no problems with it either, so I move we accept the minutes.
it. I second it. All those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Did
I
you have
just
something?
got them, so I haven't read them. Can I abstain and
I guess
still
you
make
can
it?
abstain.
Thank you.
Will that have to go to?
Yeah, right.
Okay.
No, I think you have three
Yes,
passes here.
I think that has passed, so we
Maybe
will.
we can recall them.
Okay. Well, that's all we have for today. So, Steve, you're going to get hold of Mr. Prokos and.
I'll also, if you'd like, get a hold of the law director on the vote count.
Yeah, why don't you do that?
Okay.
Basically, we had 2 for, 1 against, and 1 abstention.
Oh,
That's always a good question. So, okay. Well, thank you. Thank you, Steve.
You're welcome.